Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I just saw Gamer Aimer's video about how she went to GameStop, asked if they had retro games. They pulled out a complete in-box Super Mario Land for the original Game Boy, complete with all of the inserts, the manual, the game, everything. She had the money, she was ready to buy it, and the girl at the store basically, according to her, the girl at the store told her that she wasn't going to sell it to her because she was going to buy it and she understood how valuable the game was. Now, to be quite honest with you, I thought that this was something that was only happening in New York. And I'm pretty sure Gamer Aimer doesn't live in New York. But it looks like all over the place at certain GameStops, you have these employees who aren't even aware of what they have in their store. And it's not until someone comes in and expresses interest in the game that all of a sudden their interest is piqued and they somehow sense that there's some level of value to it. And so either they try to hide it or they don't want you to get it. Something very strange like that. Now, I'll be quite honest with you. I know that that has happened to me a number of times at GameStop. The only difference is that there has never been a GameStop employee that has been bold enough to tell me to my face that they have the game and they're just not going to sell it to me. That has never happened. But what has happened is I will go into the store, find the game, like the case for the game, take it to the register. They'll look it up. They'll see that they have the game, but they'll tell me, "Oh, we actually don't have that game. Or we just have the case. We don't actually have the game." That has happened to me a lot of times. And I brought out a few games because I have stories behind some of these games. For instances where I had found a game at GameStop and the employee didn't realize that they had it, and they tried to basically tell me that they try to make an excuse to not sell me the game. The first instance was Wolverine. Now, this was right around the time that the Wolverine Deadpool movie had just come out, and the price for this game was in transition because Wolverine Origins wasn't always like right now this game goes for, like, I'm pretty sure between $75 and $90 at GameStop. Online, they have it listed for $75. So I'm pretty sure in store it's $75. There was a point though where this game was like $24 or $27. I remember I walked into a GameStop when the pricing was in transition. So I think at this point this game was probably like around $37. And I remember walking in, seeing the case, and picking it up like, oh snap, they have the game. And I grabbed it, I took it to the register, and I was like, hi, I wanted to buy this game. I didn't even ask if they had it. I was just like, I want to buy the game. Like, I just treated it like they had it. And the dude at the store looked at the game, looked it up. Clearly, it was like everyone was talking about Deadpool Wolverine. So he knew that the game was, like, there was something to the game. And he started telling me how the register was down and they weren't accepting cards, and oh, if you want to go and come back, or do you want to come back tomorrow? My register is down. I can't process the charge. And I was like, no, I'll wait. And I stood there in that GameStop and waited for nearly an hour until he so-called got his systems back up so that he could sell me the game. And I just remember feeling like that was a massive delay tactic, and he hoped that I would leave so that I could come back tomorrow to see that the game was gone. That's the story on this one. Then you have this one, The Godfather. Now, I remember when I walked in and I saw this at a different GameStop, and I went to go purchase this. Now, clearly there's damage to this game, right? Like, some genius decided to take a highlighter. It was probably a little kid, so I don't want to say genius. I'm assuming like a toddler or a youngster took their highlighter to this game. I'm hoping an adult didn't do this, but whatever, right? So I grabbed this game, even though it had the highlighter on it, because for two reasons. One, it did have the manual and the game did work. And for those who don't know, this is one of the most expensive games on the PS3. This is like $100+ game, or at least it was. It may have gone down now, but the Godfather, the Don's Edition is an expensive game. And I remember I walked in, they had this one there. It wasn't priced too crazy. I think they had it priced at like 45 maybe, or $40. And I could tell that they had just taken in a massive trade. Like someone had just traded in a lot of stuff. Because that day, they had a lot of really good PS3 games. They had PS2 games. And I could tell, like, when I brought it to the register, first of all, I usually ask when it comes to these games, like, if they're complete, like, do you have the manual? I brought a bunch of the PS3 games that I wanted, and I was like, do you guys have the manual? And the guy was like, oh, no, we don't have the manuals. Whatever's there is there. And I remember just going through some of them, and I picked out like the two that I really wanted, the two that I was willing to take with no manual, because I was like, well, if I can get these two games without a manual, I could probably find a manual. That's one. And two, if he goes back there to get me these games and I see that they have the manual, odds are these other games have the manuals too. So we get there, I ask him about it. Lo and behold, he opens up the drawer and every PS3 game has its manual. So I was able to get this complete. It does have the manual in there. Then once he gives it to me and and it has the manual, he tries to just to dissuade me from buying it. Like, oh, the person who sold this to us had a lot of mold in their house. You probably don't want to buy it. It's moldy. This, that, and the third. Made up all kinds of reasons why I shouldn't buy this game. I was like, you know what? It's cool, guys. I'll get some dryer sheets. I've got ways of getting out smells off games. I can swap the case. I can do different things. I got it. I got it. And then like once he and his like partner saw that I wasn't gonna back down and I was gonna buy the game, then they started like going off about how a guy traded in a whole bunch of stuff and how they were able to get all these Dreamcast games for pennies on the dollar and how they got a complete in-box NES. And I just calmly told them that everything they just described I already have in my collection, but I was happy for them. But you could tell that these were games that felt like went by their radar, and it was just a lot of like, effort being put into getting me to not buy the game, which was like the strangest thing I had ever seen. That's the story with this one. These two games right here, I remember I walked in. The story behind these two aren't as crazy, but they're still funny. I remember I walked into a GameStop and I asked them if they had any PlayStation 2 games. Usually I'll just ask for a random system. I won't go in and say, hey, do you have retro games? I'll usually walk in and ask for a random specific system. So I'll say, hey, do you guys have any like N64 games? I'll say, hey, do you guys have any PS2 games? And then a lot of times, like, it will force them to either go and check their system or they'll just start going into the drawers. And I prefer for associates, for the GameStop employees or associates, whatever they're called, team members, I prefer them to go through the drawers as opposed to like looking in their system, because a lot of times they don't really take inventory properly. So they don't really like know what's there. And there'll be something that's sitting in their drawer and they didn't really like even realize it was there. And I've actually gotten free GameCube and PlayStation 2 games that way, just from games that were sitting in the drawer, and whoever was there that day just assumed that they couldn't take them, so they just gave them to me. But anyway, I remember I went in, I said, hey, do you guys have any PlayStation 2 games? And lo and behold, they've had these two games just chilling in the drawer. And I could tell that the employee was not expecting it. And there was massive hesitation on their part to sell it to me. They're like, oh, let me make sure I can sell it. Let me make sure I can give it to you. I'm not sure if I can give it to you. I'm not sure if it's in our system. Let me see. And I just played it cool and I just stayed quiet. And honestly, a lot of times when you're in those situations with the GameStop employees, less is more. Like if you just keep your cool and it's just like, I want to buy the game, I let them fumble around and try to find excuses and reasons why they can't sell it to me. But long story short, both of these games are decent games. Brotherhood of Steel on PlayStation 2 complete is close to 100, if not at 100. I know without the manual, it's probably like a $50 to $60 game. Parappa the Rapper 2 is probably like a $50 game complete, maybe 60. But both are pretty good games and like rare. Like I've only seen Brotherhood of Steel once, this Fallout game. And I've only seen Parappa the Rapper 2 maybe 2 to 3 times out in the wild. Both times prior to seeing it at GameStop were at retro game stores. So another instance where there was a lot of hesitation to sell me these games, but they still sold them to me because I my face lets them know that like, stop playing with me, like just sell me the game. Like, I mean, obviously I can't bully anyone into selling me the game, but like if I'm a paying customer and I see the game there, dude, like, what's the deal? Sell me the game. And if not, I'm gonna pull a game. I'm gonna pull worse than a gamer aimer. I'm gonna go to Google reviews. I'm making phone calls because that's a really bad business. But the last game that I know they weren't really aware of was Shadow Hearts. Now, this one wasn't as tough of a sell because luckily the person who sold me the game, the GameStop employee who sold me the game, was happy to sell it to me in this instance. They're really cool. This is a GameStop that I've built a couple relationships at, and some of the employees there are really cool. They know me. Sometimes they hold games for me that they know they can't take in, and when I come in, they'll just have stacks of games waiting for me. So I wish I could shout them out, but I can't because I don't know who their bosses are, and their bosses might be really anal, so I don't want to get them in trouble. But um, anyway, I remember going and picking up this copy of Shadow Hearts, and I remember one of the employees there, the manager actually that was there that day, um, when they saw that I was buying this game, I could tell that they were like, you could just see it in his face, like, or in her face. It was either he or her, can't remember. You could just see in their face that they didn't want to sell me the game because they knew that if I was buying it, there had to be more value there than the price that they were selling the game for. So it's almost like you could tell that they wanted to get it for themselves. And it really got to the point, at least in my area, where the manager just made it a point to like try and not let any retro games in their store. They just made it a point to get all of the retro games out of their store. And I actually stopped going for a while. And I guess once they saw that I wasn't going for a while, all of a sudden they started having retro games in the store again. And like I recently went in and picked up some retro games. I say all that to say that I'm sure, like many others, if you go to GameStop enough, you've had some type of experience with that. I just think that the experience that Gamer Aimer had is crazy. Like, that is wild that she just straight up told her, like, yo, I'm not gonna sell this to you because I'm gonna buy it for myself. Like, that's just crazy talk. Like, I can't even imagine like an employee saying something like that to me. Like, that's just crazy. But that's what you can expect. That is what you can expect. And that's a big part of the reason why, like, in some cases, I almost prefer buying only cartridge-based games, and I only do it online. And I try to get it from the warehouse because these days the employees, there's always at least 2 to 3 employees in every GameStop that hunts games just as much as like your average retro game hunter, and they're going to be trying to poach games left and right. It's not going to stop most people from going to GameStop, but it is just another barrier that you have to be aware of and be ready for. Just, I didn't think that we were at the point where where employees are just straight up telling you to your face that, yeah, you're holding the game in your hand but you can't buy it. Like, that to me is wild. GameStop, you need to do better. You need to train your employees to do better. And if this trend continues, it's not going to be a good look for your whole retro GameStop endeavor. Like, it's really not going to be a good look for you guys at all. And if enough people start to have that type of experience, you guys just might become the next DK Oldies, where the entire internet is making videos about the retro GameStop practices. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Have you ever had a experience as wild as Gamer Aimer? Man, like, let me know. Have you ever had an employee try to shaft you on a game or just, act like they can't sell it to you? I'm really interested to know your thoughts and hear your stories. Until next time, it's the Y2K Collector. Take it easy.